Father, as Willie brings a message to us and as she shares with us about her ministry among the Sioux Native Americans, we ask, Holy Spirit, that you will speak to our hearts, that you will open us to hear your message and your word clearly communicated to us through her words. Father, may the words of her mouth and the meditation of each and every one of our hearts here today please you, our Lord, our rock, and our Redeemer. Amen.
Okay, good morning. It is a pleasure to be with you. I bring you greetings from my husband, who is working in Kodiak, Alaska, and obviously couldn't fly home for this, so he sends his greetings. I come to you humbly because I'm not an expert on Native Americans. I'm not an expert on the Sioux. I'm not an expert on anything, but I did want to share with you a little bit about our work in South Dakota with primarily the Crow Creek Sioux, but also the Lower Rural Sioux, which are right across the river from each other. Now, if I were Native American, I would apologize to you and to the spiritual leaders and to the elders for having the audacity to get up and speak in front of you, people who are much wiser than I. But since I'm not Native American, I guess I don't have to apologize. Okay, we're going to see a couple pictures real quickly, just so that you get an idea. When we decided to go to South Dakota, we said, where is South Dakota, and what is South Dakota, and what's in South Dakota? So we'll just show you a couple quick maps. So we'll have map 1. Okay, this is South Dakota. On the far right, on the eastern side is Sioux Falls, which is the largest city. And on the far left, you will see Rapid City. And it's there that you may know of the monument of the 4 presidents. What's it called? Well, the Native Americans call it the 4 big heads. Anyhow, this is a big state. There aren't a lot of towns. Right in the very middle is Chamberlain. It's not quite in the middle, but sort of in the middle is Chamberlain. And then if you go up that little road right beside the river, that's where, can I go over there? Okay, this is Chamberlain, and then upwards is Lake Sharp. Fort Thompson would be on this side, and Lower Brill would be on the other side of the Missouri River. They are actually pretty close, but you have to go around the river to get there, so it's about 15 miles. They're both very rural. Okay, next slide. Okay, there are 9 Sioux tribes in South Dakota, and you'll see the Crow Creek Sioux right in the middle, and on the other side is the Lower Rural Sioux. There are 9 of them, and this is the size of their land. Notice Crow Creek is small, Lower Rural is even smaller. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. This in green were the native lands that were promised to them in a treaty. The ones in orange are what they are left with. In 1889, the U.S. took back 7.7 million acres of the Sioux sacred Black Hills in Rapid City. So that's pretty staggering. Okay, I think that's my third, so I think that's all done. Both reservations are very poor. In fact, for a while, there was a contest of who was the poorest county in the nation. And it was like bragging rights. Oh, we're the poorest county. No, we're the poorest county. Depending on what statistics you looked at, it was always up for grabs. But the reservations have abject poverty. More than 50% are below the poverty line. That always means problems. In addition, they have a profound alcohol problem, which of course is what us white people, when we hear about it, but they do have really a profound drinking problem. It was introduced by the white people. They're always quick to tell us that. One lady told us when we went there that 90% of the families have been affected by alcohol. Many, many, many of the young people, the moms, and the dads, and the grandmas, and grandpas are drunks. And I know we're supposed to say alcoholics, but in this situation, it just feels like you need to say the word drunks. When we would take some of the kids home from Sunday school, their grandpa would be lying on the front porch, on the front step, drunk, and they would step over him to get into the house. So it's hard for me to sugarcoat it and say they're alcoholics because they really sincerely have a problem. But now we have an additional problem of meth, and it's just rampant on the reservations. The nearest town to Crow Creek is Chamberlain, so it's 26 miles away. So there is a little store in Crow Creek. There's, there I think is none on Lower Brill now, that closed. So you can see that if you're poor and you're 26 miles away from a store and can't afford a car, or you can't afford gas if you have a car, it's quite a distance. They will try to hitchhike to and hope that somebody picks them up, the 26 miles. We had to laugh about one Sunday school one morning. I needed soap flakes for my craft, so I had to drive 60 miles round trip to get a box of soap flakes. But so you can see that if you don't have money for gas, it's a problem, and they're always saying, "Can you give me gas money? Can you give me gas money?" One said, "I have to go pick up my daughter at the hospital. Oh, I have to take my daughter to the hospital. She's delivering. I don't have any gas money." So it really is a problem. So when you have poverty and you have alcoholism and you have meth, there are lots of problems that result from that, as you can imagine, in any poverty situation. The evidences are harsh, and they take a toll on families. Car accidents, a lot of young people dying because they're driving like mad and they're drunk. By the way, the legal driving age in South Dakota is 14. Not a good idea. But since the reservations are sovereign nations, they don't have those rules, so 10-year-olds drive. I used to say, I'll probably have an accident sometime in my life, but I'm really going to be ticked off if I get hit by a 10-year-old. I shouldn't be driving. There's a lot of diabetes. They have a very poor diet. Again, they blame the white people because we introduced some of this good old white flour and sugar and those kinds of things. Teen pregnancies, of course, are rampant. Health issues, violence, child abuse, sexual abuse, spousal abuse, even incest is just part of the problems, some of the problems they have. Suicide rate is very high. Their preferred method is hanging. One of our friends lost 2 of her 3 sons to hanging, and her 3rd son just died of cancer, and so she is just totally lost. It's really a very harsh place to live. The Sioux people, not just in Crow Creek and Lower Brill, but the Sioux people in general have wonderful names, very colorful names, very descriptive names. Some of our friends, Trey Skunk, Phyllis Comes Flying, Corbin Shoots the Enemy, Evelyn One Eye. So these are all family names that get passed down. And I often wondered if the children get teased about some of their names, but I never heard anybody tease each other about their names, which I find really interesting. We lived on the reservation about 6 years. We lived right next to the clinic. We had a wonderful time there. We got very involved in the community, in the schools, in the churches, and in the lives of the people. because I played the piano, it was pretty rudimentary in my book. I didn't play beautifully. I would want you to say that wonderful prayer about heavenly music and angelic tongue. Whoa, nobody ever said maybe that's why I don't play like she does. But anyhow, I grew up playing by ear the hymns because my father was a minister. And so this came in really handy. And they soon just expected me to be at the wakes and funerals. They didn't even ask. And one time I thought, well, I don't know, I guess I should go over to this wake or a funeral. I guess it was a funeral this time. And so I thought, well, I'll take my keyboard just in case. And I walked in and there were 200 people waiting for me. That was a little disconcerting, so I was trying to hook things up and get on with the service. It was very apparent that they loved to sing. So we started an adult choir, and we saw one of those pictures. We sang in Lakota and Dakota. Lakota is the lower rural side, and Dakota is the Crow Creek side. The river defines it. There's also a new Nakota, which is in North Dakota. But we caught on really quickly to singing with them, and so we sang at every wake on both reservations, the Protestant wakes, because the nuns took care of the Catholic. So the interesting part was that we got both reservations to sing together because they don't necessarily like to work together very much. So it was just a wonderful time. We got together every week and we sang, we laughed. I always took jokes and we prayed and we just had a wonderful bonding experience. It's probably what I miss as much as anything. We even went as far as getting robes from some church in Palmyra, Pennsylvania. They didn't want theirs anymore, and they thought they were the cat's meow. They stood up there and they were so proud. So wakes and funerals are very different. That's something that I really treasured. Now we got our fill of them because they happen a lot, and they're 2-night wakes. So the body comes to the reservation, everybody follows, they go to the funeral, we all follow in their cars. At 4 o'clock, they have prayers. It could be held at a church, it could be held at the bingo hall, it could be held at a gymnasium. But at 4 o'clock, they have prayers. Then at 7 o'clock, it starts the first wake. And the wake service goes from about 7 to 11 at night. Then they serve everybody a big meal. Now, I'll tell you, I gained weight when I was in South Dakota because you eat bologna sandwiches and fried chicken and things that weren't good for you, but you were expected to be polite and eat what they served you. Then some of us would go home about midnight. The family and the friends stay all night. They just bring sleeping bags and they stay all night, all day, and then at 7 o'clock the next night we do it all over again. And then the next day is the funeral. It's a long service, one of them like 5 hours. My little fingers were just going to town while I played the music for it. But they're very powerful. I won't give you more details because I don't have the time, but the cowboy funerals are really, really moving. And of course, they really have a connection with the drum. They feel that it's the heartbeat. And so they play drums at the funerals, at some of the funerals, because the Presbyterian ministry that went out there years ago told them the drums were good, that they could play the drums. The Wesleyan church and let's see, what was the other one, went out, they told them the drums are bad. You can't use guns, they're heathen. So we were sort of caught in the middle on that, but we just decided we weren't there to judge, and we participated as we needed to. We felt that education was important, but nobody has money to buy books. And so we started a children's library, and you saw a couple pictures of that. We just word of mouth told our friends, and we ended up with about 2,000 children's books that went in the Boys and Girls Center, and they are still treasured, although some, of course, are missing. But the homes are small. Sometimes there are 15 people living in a 2-bedroom place. Kids sleep wherever, on the couch, on the floor, wherever there is room. We started a Sunday school and ended up with about 40 kids that we transported to their homes. We started a youth group, and you may have seen the giant peace dove that we made for the Roots and Shoots, Jane Goodall's organization. We started a branch there, and we made that giant dove and took it in different parades. The kids mostly liked coming to our home. They knew that they were safe there. Sometimes they would come late at night because they'd been locked out of their homes, their parents were drunk or fighting, or we would go to take them home and we would hear the fighting out from the street, and we'd say, "You're not going in there, you're going home with me." We gave baths, we had extra clothes that we would give the kids, food, things that helped to keep them warm. They loved coming to play with Barbies. And boy, did we learn a lot when they were playing with Barbies. I mean, they played wakes and funerals with their Barbies, and other things. They liked to make cookies. They had never made cookies. Nobody had a cookie sheet. Nobody had a mixer. So they made cookies, we played Legos, we practiced reading, we tutored. We just basically gave cups of water whenever we had an opportunity. Our biggest initiative was bringing children from the reservation to Pennsylvania for a week to 10 days, depending on what their trip entailed. And so they flew, they were scared to death, and it was interesting as the plane would go up. In unison, you'd hear them go, "Ah!" But they had a wonderful experience. We took subways, we took buses and trains, we went to museums, we went to the beach, some of them did. Some went to Gretna Glen Christian Camp near Hershey. And they had a wonderful, wonderful experience. They still talk about it. When they see us, that's the first thing they say is, Ms. Wood, do you remember when we, and then they would fill in the blank. It was really powerful. I made a picture book for each of them. This was an expensive endeavor, let me tell you. But I made a picture book of 100 pictures for each child that went on a trip. And they treasure them even now in situations where they keep nothing. They have no room, but they hide these picture books so that nothing ever happens to them. So maybe it made an impact. We like to think it did. We left South Dakota in the fall of 2006 to go to the Navajo Nation and then ultimately to a reservation in Alaska and Idaho. But our hearts are in South Dakota, especially mine. That was home to me, the capital H home. I had found home when I was in South Dakota, so it was really hard to leave. Because of your generation or your generosity to the people in need there, we started an organization called Caring Horizons. It's a nonprofit, and every penny that comes into that goes directly to the people. Because we are still in contact with them, we hear a lot about needs, or they contact us and say, it's freezing and I have no propane. They have to choose often between heat and electricity. Do we want warmth? Do we want lights? Usually propane wins out. There are many times these funerals are expensive. Now they go pretty cheaply, and the funeral director told me that he charges so much less than what he charges the other people, but they just can't pay. And they pay for the food for the 3 feeds that they do for the people. So they really need our assistance. And so as we get, we give. So it's really been wonderful. We also tried to help the churches because the priest is in charge of 7 churches. And their offerings are usually, on a good day, maybe $25. If there's a guest, maybe $50. And they're supposed to pay the utilities. And if there are wakes and funerals, that's a lot more electricity that's being used than perhaps heat. They do have an air conditioner, but that jacks things up. So we do try to help them out a little bit. The little mission church that you saw, where those of you who are going to work, it was just recently reopened, and it's a historic church because Chief Iron Nation is buried at the cemetery right beside it. But they have no electricity, no heat, no water, And what's the other thing we need? They have nothing, in other words. The priest hooks up his truck. I don't know how this works, but he does something to his truck to run the generator so that they can have a few light bulbs and they can play the organ. But the organ died because it can't stand the severe heat and the severe coldness. So I'm trying to find them a used keyboard that they can schlep back and forth. But anyhow, their heating system, how did you like that? There was a little bit of, I think that was a generator that made the heat pump go. They blasted it through a wall, and then the heat would go up the register, and that's how they tried to heat their sanctuary, so they keep their winter coats on. But they have no bathrooms. Now on the prairie, there ain't too many places to go to hide. But we have enough money accumulated now to get an outdoor toilet, and are they excited? I don't know how many of you would be excited if your church said we're getting an outdoor toilet. Maybe that's what the congregational meeting's about today. Or that you have to put a dime in to get in, and then that dime goes to somebody's outdoor toilet project. But anyhow, we now have enough money to construct it, and if you guys are willing to do the actual construction, that would be one of our projects, is to build them an outhouse. These people really sacrifice to worship. But I maintain that we are just regular people, just giving cups of water. It varied depending on who had the need, what the need was, but I think we're all called to do that. Now, maybe you're not going to South Dakota, maybe you're going to go in a work group, but the bottom line is we're all commanded to give cups of kindness to people who need it. Maybe a smile, maybe a hug, maybe someone who needs transportation. There are just many, many ways that we can do kindnesses. And that's all we were doing. We were not special. We were not commissioned to be missionaries. We just felt the call to go. And it was more of a blessing to us, I think, than to them. But with so many people in a poverty state, the median income in Fort Thompson, depending on the source, is about $12,000. Now that I think is a little bit high, but since I know the people, but they knocked on our door a lot when we lived there. Would you buy this painting? Would you buy this star quilt wall hanging? Would you buy these earrings? Well, we usually did if they were selling something because we felt that was better than handing them the money that they were working for. However, the one time I bought these pretty earrings, and the next day at work, my husband's boss said, "Did Jean come by and sell you earrings?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, those were mine." So I was expected to give them back, but I didn't get my money back. Anyhow, that's just a little of our work. There we keep in touch with many of the people, and we were there for graduation just in May. It was just so fulfilling to go back and to see the friends again. We often wondered when we were there, are we making a difference? But we kept being told that we thought it was from God. You know, it's easy to speak for God, but we thought that God wanted us to be faithful. He didn't want us to do the measuring of whether or not it was of value. He just wanted us to be faithful. So that's what we did, and we could use the sower and seed examples of it. But what we're finding now is that those seeds that we planted, and it wasn't necessarily intentional, but by showing these kids unconditional love, and the adults, not there to criticize, not there to change them, not there to do anything more than show God's love. They knew we were Christians by our love. And now, with the miracle of social networking, I'm able to keep in touch with a lot of those young girls primarily who are now moms. They're still young, but they're moms. And they didn't have the role model of a mom. Their moms, many of them, were drunks, had abandoned them. One abandoned them because her skin was too dark. So these kids did not have role models, but they remember our love, and they remember that we cared enough about them to do special things for them, and they felt so loved. So with the social networking, Facebook, email, now we are finding that those seeds have sprouted after all. Some of them, some kids are in jail and some are in treatment, etc. But God didn't ask us to measure whether one life is important or 20 lives are important. He just said, keep being faithful. Keep giving those drinks of water, those cups of water whenever you can. And that encouragement has just blessed us. It gives me goosebumps because these kids say, I don't know where I'd be if you hadn't loved me. That's pretty powerful. And we did nothing other than show our love. So may we pray. Father, we thank you for all your showers of blessings to us, for watering the seeds that we scattered along the way, and for reminding us of how important little acts of kindness are to people who are thirsty for love and acceptance, and they're thirsty most of all for your love. In Jesus' name, amen.
Before I say the benediction, we'll be saying, I'll say the benediction and we'll sing our closing hymn. Then we will break for about 5 minutes and reconvene at the hour.